we had to speak about what should be done on state level and what should be done on local level. That who should do what. And so I have now this say that on state level activities is like creating legislation and elaborating action plans and measures, and on local level then there will be certain activities. And on state level activities, then there is this first we had to adopt the European Union Flood Risk Directive, which was done in 2009. And we had to adopt this national legislation. Several laws had to be changed. And then we had to do risk assessment, create maps of flood risk areas. I had to make flood management plans, elaborate types of measures, and we had to designate who are the responsible actors and how much the measures are costing. And we have like two documents here. First is this, of course, this flood management plan, but that doesn't contain everything. As already in the very first introductory presentation, Maria Falaleyeva said that activities for flood mitigation are all over the Sustainable Development Goals, and that is the case also for this flood risk mitigation. We have another document which is for just climate risk adaptation measures, and this contains a lot of chapters like forestry and agriculture and rescue services and what everybody should do. And this document, for this document, there were first 4 very important projects that the universities of Estonia were divided into groups, and they had to elaborate all these different chapters. And tomorrow we will visit the Estonian University of Life Sciences, which was responsible for the forestry and agriculture and all these areas which are most close to the heart of coalition between Baltics. Now, the local level activities, these are mainly these planning things are going on local level, and also local level authorities and specialists take care of stormwater treatment, and they have to decide about the combined and separate sewage systems and the green infrastructure, which has been now mentioned here for several times. And on this Ministry of Environment homepage, I also found this information day materials for now stakeholders. And then there was a water engineer who then spoke about the nature-based solutions, which for Estonia still is a very new thing. And he brought out all these pros and cons of these nature-based solutions and why in Estonia they are not very popular. We have only a few cases now yet. When we had in 2016 in our university the conference, this project Baltic Flows, which was also about stormwater management, an international project, and final conference was in Tallinn, then of course the practical solutions still were all related to these technologies of draining the stormwater under the parking lots. And there was an exhibition, there is an enterprise called Hydroscan, which is producing these metal things which are under where the water can drain, and all these things were very popular, but these green solutions, we had a case study. We went to the botanical garden where we have really reconstructed ditch with all the plants and retention places. And that was at that time the only thing that we could show. But in Estonia, as I say, local level authorities are very cautious about these new things. And also when we had this Hea Water project that was introduced on Monday, then the Sweden made a rain garden and another kind of green solution. Then Finland was doing this. They put filter things into the rivers to catch the trash that is flowing there. And then they measured what is going on with different types of this trash catching. And Estonia, we also wanted to do some kind of more progressive things like green solutions and things, but we were told that no, the local government has already decided that you can only do this wooden or whatever, this embankment, because there has been an old landfill on one side of this river, and then the only thing where we can use money is to build this embankment, and nothing else can be done. Where I was very sorry, because I was just reading a lot of materials about how these rivers can be changed with green methods, but nothing of the kind was just allowed, because in Estonia the rules may be very strict. All these environmental impact assessments and plannings and permits, in Estonia they took most of the time. In Sweden and in Finland it was very easy to start with activities, but in our project part half of the time went for paperwork, and later on only the embankment you saw what was the result of this work, and it's now your opinion how good the result was there. Now we come to this harmonizing of the legislation. As I said that in Estonia the legislation was harmonized by 2009, and we changed 4 acts. It was the Water Act, Public Water Supply and Sewerage Act, and Environmental Charges Act. I think that for a lot of you it's very simplistic presentation now, but I learned a lot, that there is again a cycle like with this water management planning with the rivers, that there is this cycle that first you make this directive transposition, and then there will be six-year cycles, that there is first this risk assessment, then there will be like maps of hazard areas, and then there will be measurement plans, and after 6 years it's all again revised, and with each of these steps there is a 6 months long public consultation compulsory. Now I must say that in this, although Estonian Water Association is always invited to all kinds of this kind of public consultations, if anything related to water is being done, like in marine special areas planning or in something else, then in this case I don't remember that even we were invited, but on the Ministry of Environment homepage I see that there have been these public consultations. I don't know now, like somebody else already said, how much could an ordinary person influence this, and how much could an ordinary person give input, really valuable input, because I think it's very, very, very specific topic, but no, this is how it has gone. Even in Estonia, the latest plan for measures was then adopted on the 22nd of December 2021, and the update is expected to be in 2027. What are the most frequent types of floods? There are now 3 types of floods in Estonia. The first one is the sea level rise in the Pärnu case, where we saw where the water level measure was on the hotel on this beach, where how high was the water level there. And then the first type is if the floods and rivers are rising with excess rainfall or snow melt. And this is the case, for example, tomorrow in the Tartu, where there is the river Emajõgi, where there is also the seasonal high tides, but also, of course, it can be that this is a place where the rivers can rise also if there is really, really big excess storm water. And the third type is when there is very densely built areas, and for example, the Sindi Dam place, which you visited yesterday, before the dam was taken down, there were also a very big event of this kind of flood, because of this very densely populated village there was flooded, and also that gave a big impetus to it was influencing the decision also, maybe, that there is something needs to be done. So these types of floods and the possibility how they occur have to be first theoretically elaborated. This was done. And then, of course, there is a part of the work where the floods in the past must be analyzed. Then the data can be taken from the local governments, or we have also a public database, ELIS, which contains information that could be used, and articles in old newspapers were elaborated. And of course, the recent very big storm in January 2005, where really there was rescue actions taken. All these experiences were taken then as an example to elaborate future activities. And on this, the greenhouse here is in Haapsalu, which we didn't visit, but this is a building. This is like a courthouse on the beach of city Haapsalu, where we spoke that they have a very high basement, and then the water goes through the basement. Probably on this picture, the basement is underwater. But this is the example where already in the old times the constructions took into account that there could be flooding, although it could only be twice in 1,000 years. There are some goals of risk mitigation, and they are now also listed, that they are avoiding the floods, protection from the floods, then pushing the flood back, safeguarding preparedness, and the prevention of new flood risk areas. And these maps of flood risk areas were compiled according to 4 scenarios, showing the possible rise of water level if the water level would rise in 10 years, in 50 years, 100 years, or 1,000 years. And for each scenario, the following forecasts were made: extent of the flood, water level, and in case of the flowing water courses, the flow rate was tried to forecast. And all these maps are available in. They were made using some kind of model DEM, which I don't know much about, but this was this was what I found out from the Ministry of Environment homepage. And now these maps of these risk areas are publicly available. We have a land board, and the land board has a geoportal, and in principle everybody could then look at this flood risk maps. And also the Ministry of Environment has direct links to these maps. And these areas, these maps, then describe possible hazards to population, hazards to wastewater treatment plants, hazards to swimming beaches, hazards to owners of environmental permits, and branches of economic activities under threat. Designated risk areas. As you see, there are other cities, settlements, or villages. So rural areas and urban areas, as is the aim of our conference too, to see both experiences. And in the city column, you see Tartu, you see Pärnu, and Tallinn is also there. And as you see, Viljandi is not there. And as I already mentioned in the bus yesterday, Viljandi has the lake, and they have a slope, so all the water falls down into the lake, and the lake is saving. It's like this natural retention place, and that's why in this city we don't have flood risk. And and then if we speak about the biggest flooding risk of a river, then we should mention Tartu River, Tartu and Emajõgi River. But if we speak about the lakes, then we also have in city Võru, we have Lake Tamula, and it was also said that in Lake Tamula it could be a very high risk of flooding if any lake should be taken into account. Now, measures in the plan are then, as today already somebody mentioned it, but they are like anticipative, then protective, and being ready measures. And they are then interconnected to river basin management plans, which have been now adopted and renewed as needed. And the flood measurement plan then is available on the link below. Now there are 14 chapters of the flood management plan listed here, and maybe we will not go very deeply into it, but this is no, probably, maybe Poland has just the same kind of plan, but this for me was all news when I was reading it, that I am a student of this university, so sorry for this maybe little bit simplistic presentation, but these are these chapters. And maybe if this can be similar to Poland, then something is in every country different. And this is what kind of measures there are, how many percentages of measures are. And I don't think that this is exactly the same as in Poland. And there are administrative measures, civil engineering measures, counseling measures, and research measures. And then there are these combined measures. And as we see, there is made now this pie, which says how much of them are. And the biggest part is these administrative measures. Yeah? And in the following slide, which is only in Estonian, so it is said that in the following slide we see who is responsible, which type of institutions are responsible. And you will see that the local governments then are most responsible. And this is just this kind of slide, and then you see that the biggest ones here are then these local governments and the Ministry of Environment and I think that if we compare that slide or this pie with the Polish pie, then this is not the same, at least. Maybe all the rest was the same as in Poland, but this is probably not, at least. And there was this, that what should I consider when you do this adaptation? And mainly, because this presentation that I'm now referring to was given on this information day for local governments. And what should they do then? And then they said that you should think about these construction standards for flood risk areas, and then also the standards for the areas outside this flood risk area. And for example, at how high the ground floor should be. And then again, there is this planning of green areas, because green areas are those which can infiltrate the stormwater. And here is again a fight for Estonian Greens. There has been a fight because in Tallinn, these green areas are not just diminishing. Everywhere you get the asphalt, and already citizens are very angry, but there is no green areas are just disappearing because there are so many cars. There need to be places to cars. So in between the houses, as you know, all the green areas are put under asphalt, and then people are fighting that they want that the green areas would come back, that there would be at least in city picture, less lawns should be restored again. And then there was a big Estonian academics were then asked to make this study, and it came out that in Tallinn there is so much granite and limestone, not granite but limestone areas, and few sand, so the only places where you could infiltrate water are graveyards, and all the rest should be covered, because all the rest of the city is not penetrable because of what is underground, that it's not possible. And maybe the Christine part of the Tallinn where I live, I think that area still we can have green areas, and so it comes down from local level already to so-called. I think that the apartment flat union is like a village level already. That village level is a little bit lower. And then also there is a big news that can you imagine that if we are now protecting some areas, that it's not only protecting nature, but it's also beneficial for human health. That was now set out by the Ministry of Environment on their information day. And then there was another interesting for me a presentation by Lauri Loko from Estonian Association of Water Engineers. And now I say we have a proverb in Estonia that repeating is the mother of wisdom. So I go through them, but we have been speaking about them today. And just let us see what was there. And there are like sustainable urban drainage system and there is traditional stormwater system, and they are different, and where the difference is laid. And he had been now calculating also some numbers and what are the amounts of water bodies and all these engineering things that I don't know so well. But I'm just, for me there was linguistically interesting to see what are the words in English and what are the words in Estonian. For me it was like a learning process again, and these are now soakways. There are imkaevud in Estonia. Then there are rain gardens or water gardens, and now this is what was in the Swedish Söderhamn project. We saw one. Then we have permeable surfaces. Now this is something relevant to apartment house buildings because we have financial support from city government that please make your yards. You can change them for better. So where there are some ugly places, you can make them better. But of course, permeable surfaces is a very expensive measure. So again, something that you have to talk to people that they agree that let's put the money there and let's do it, and it's a good thing. But it's on the shoulders of very local level now because the city itself will not come and do it. So here we have filter strips. This means that if everything is covered impermeable cover, then in the middle there can be some plant strips. And this is now again something that is promoted. Yeah, swales. Now I think swales are not. Maybe they are. Yes, this is called viibekraavid in Estonia. It's a ditch where the water can remain a little bit longer. So if it can't filtrate enough quickly. Now there are infiltration trenches. There are imkraavid. Here you see that there is more than only this change of the surface, but there's something is done underground also. We have infiltration basins. And this is something which yesterday when I went to this Villa Maria over the bridge, then on one hand it was exactly the same place, exactly the same shape of this basin. So I wonder now if it is artificial or is it historical, part of historical protection construction around some kind of a important house. There are detention basins. There are now also again some buffering areas, and retention ponds. Detention bases, retention ponds. Very interesting. And these are now special ponds where water can stay. Here are these pros and cons of sustainable stormwater systems, because they are now speaking very much. Again, it's going very slowly that we don't want to go for it. And here, in that presentation, it was brought out that the strong points are that it adds recreational value to the area, and in winter time you can use it as a snow storage place. But the bad thing about this that in winter there is problem that infiltration is not functioning, or in case there's heavy rain, the soil gets saturated very quickly, and then again the infiltration doesn't function. Of course, the need of maintenance is also always a problem, that you can make some kind of a green solution somewhere, but then it always means that there is much more human work needed, because all such kind of things need much care. And of course, a lot of space is needed. So in the cities, it's always the problem that land is expensive, and there is, if there has never been any space for natural solutions, then it's very difficult to create it there. Now, here are some principles of sustainable planning for Estonian authorities. I don't know whether you want to read them all, but there is some kind of filtration models for different types of soil, coarse sand or fine sand, and clay sand or clay. So yesterday we made this experiment for children in this nature house, and there we also were looking how quickly the different kind of substance can infiltrate water. And this goes, it's only not only for wastewater treatment, but it's also important in this infiltration systems for stormwater. So this is mainly all that I found out